Welcome to the One Love, One Faith podcast, where we use the love of Christ and faith in His Word to navigate Christian living in the 21st century. Remember to follow us on social media at onelove_onefaith. Hey out there.
Hello, everyone.
My name is Camille,
And I'm Arendia.
and this is the One Love, One Faith podcast.
Yiri!
Bienvenidos a todos. ¿Cómo estás? ¿Qué lo que, mi gente?
She does the most every single week. I cannot. I can't.
You just don't know what I'm going to do, you know?
Yeah,
Unpredictable.
we see that. We see that, friend. We see that.
Welcome, One Love Nation. Hi, guys. We're glad that you're back. It is week 2 of Love Zone Month.
Of course, and you know what's coming up, next week in a couple of days. And for whoever is booed up, we see y'all. We see how God is blessing you. We just waiting on our time, period. We ain't jelly.
Oh my goodness. Yes, Valentine's Day is right around the corner. And just a short PSA. It's Valentine's Day with an N as in Nancy, not an M as in Mary. I'm really, really tired of hearing you guys say Valentine's Day. That is not what the word is. So just a public service announcement.
Don't come for my Jamaican family.
Don't come for your
don't come for my Jamaican family, because you know that's exactly how we
Is that how
pronounce
they?
it.
Nah, they don't be doing that. No,
They do. They do.
I cannot.
Oh my God, it's too funny.
Well, now you know. It's just, we like to educate people here. That's all. Just educate people.
It doesn't bother me. Camille, it does. It doesn't. Grandma bothers Camille. It does.
I'm just saying there's no M in the word. Just saying. Anyway. Back to our regularly scheduled programming.
Right?
Get to know you question. Okay, friend.
Get to know you question. Okay, so.
Yeah.
Right. So, you know how we're going. So, this week we spoke to a few married couples about marriage. And so, the get to know you question is kind of along that line, right? And so, we're going to make this disclaimer: we're not married, but we do have insights. So, don't come for us. Thank you. Okay.
Right. So, the question is, as unmarried individuals, you and I, what do you think is a threat to marriage? Okay, so I'm really excited for us to dig into what the couple said, and I agree with lots of what they said. But something that we won't mention today is, and that I think can be an obstacle, is pride.
Ooh, I feel
And
that.
that's what I'll say. Pride. Yeah.
I feel
Like
that.
just the unwillingness to admit your faults or to accept responsibility for your portion, of blame in what, in something that might have happened, and instead thinking that it's always someone else or someone else's fault. I think, not being able to
That's a pet
to
peeve
kind of,
of
what is that
mine.
called?
Yeah.
To critique yourself and know that. I
Take
think that,
accountability.
yeah. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So just being prideful, that's definitely not gonna. I think that's not gonna work in a marriage. So
Yeah, I really I like that one. I love that one, because that is yes, Jesus. I like that one.
okay. What about you? What do you think?
For me, I think like one of like something that I've seen is like when you're married and like someone innocently like flirts with you, but you like keep playing along, whether it be coworker or whoever it is, like you keep playing along, not knowing that like you're treading on like dangerous territory. So I think that like when we see these like behaviors from like other people, we should probably like when married people see those behaviors, it should probably like nip it in the bud before it gets to anything that is extreme. I don't know. I think that's I think that's one of the things that I think. like
Okay.
in a sense, like being blind to something that could develop into something way better. Like not way better, but way dangerous. You know what I mean? So I think we have to pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to those things.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. All right. So, guys, the married folks have spoken, and we are going to relay what they have said. Okay? Lego.
Yes, we had to reach out to our married folks since we are currently unmarried.
Right.
So we went to the experts for you guys, okay? We went to
Yes.
those currently in marriages.
Right.
And they actually gave us 8 areas, 8 categories. So we'll just run through them. And, we have some quotes from them and, we'll just talk about it.
Right.
So the first area that they spoke about. So the first threat is not putting up boundaries around your marriage to keep the threats out. So not having boundaries set. And by everyone's comments, it was pretty clear that they meant protecting your relationship from other people, you know?
Right. Right.
So one of the couples I spoke to, they said, have you made a clear place for your friends versus your spouse? Your spouse is the priority separate from, the commitments you have to your friends. And they even, I'm going to quote them here. They said, there are some friends that are simply not worth your marriage.
Ooh. I mean, she ain't, whoever that is, they ain't lying. They're not lying. For
Right.
real. I think a lot of times, sometimes people can hold on to friendships, and it can be a friendship that is not necessarily influencing you to do the right thing, especially when, like, if you're having issues, they're influencing you to do the opposite of what you should be doing. And so sometimes we have to like look at those friendships and evaluate those friendships and be like, okay, like, is this even worth keeping? Yeah, because sometimes we don't even look at meaningful relationships. Sometimes I think sometimes we look at just like how long we've known a person, and I'm like, I can't cut this person off. I know them from kindergarten. Yeah, but they toxic though. So what you gonna do? You know what I mean?
Right, right.
Right.
Right. At some point, it's like, well, if a choice has to be made, it's your spouse or your friend, then,
Yeah.
whoops. Right. And, that same couple, they were clear about the fact that in our minds, we might immediately jump to thinking that, oh, this is about protecting your marriage from friendships with the opposite sex,
Right.
like, the husband having female friends and the wife having male friends. But it's not solely just that. Obviously, that's a big concern. But not just that. This is like anyone who doesn't respect your spouse, or is trying to get you or your spouse to change, or is pulling you away from your spouse. So it doesn't necessarily have to be someone of the opposite sex. It's just anything that causes you not to realize that you're a partnership now, and it's not going to work if a friend is trying to come between you.
All right. I have a question for you, friend. If you have, when you're married, do you think that you and your husband, like, you have to have like mutual friends? Can your husband like have friends outside of like friends that you two know? Can they like have a friend like you don't know and they're the opposite sex?
Oh, you're asking specifically about the opposite sex.
Yeah, specifically about the opposite sex. Like, can your husband have a friend you don't know them, but do you think that would be okay with you, or do you think that's appropriate for marriages?
Hopefully, hopefully we both have hopefully we both have the trust there, right? So, hopefully we have the trust there, and we've proven to each other, we can be trusted. But that being said, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be interactions or close work friends or whatever that I wouldn't expect that I don't know about them. Even if we don't all hang out, or I'm sure that I would think that he would talk to me about the friend or mention the friend. I don't know. Like, is it okay to have a female friend that I don't know? I mean, yeah, I think it's gonna happen. I think it's bound to happen. But I think like an acquaintance maybe, but like once it gets to the point of like a friend, I think I would know about it. I would, yeah, like if it was someone that was close to him and then I didn't know about it, that's what makes me be like, huh, why
So
not? Like, why didn't you just say, like, I would
That's
think she would have come up, in conversation. So
that's
it's not that I would be
suspicious.
like, "Oh, you can't have a female friend." It would be, I would expect to hear about it, even if I never, knew them.
Okay.
What about you?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like I would want to have like mutual friends, just because I feel like I've like all the married couples that I've heard from, they're like, yeah, like I've heard this one person was like, yeah, I don't hang out with anyone that my wife doesn't know, or like all of our friends are mutual, and I don't hang out with anyone that's not like that is single. So I've heard like a lot of married couples like set that boundary to be like, yeah, I can't have friends with single people, or my wife doesn't have a single male friend and I don't have a single female friend. Like all of us are married and we come together, and I'm like, oh, okay, interesting. For
And
me
they only
person,
spend time as a group together?
that's the impression that I got.
Okay. Because for me, I know this might seem a little jaded, I don't know, but for me, like, it's a crazy world out there, guys.
It
And
is.
honestly, single, married, attached, dating,
It
people
don't
are gonna,
matter.
like, if you don't trust, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Exactly. And if
yeah,
you don't trust your spouse, or you can't, or they're not trustworthy around other people, that person's marital status is not really gonna matter at the end of the
yeah,
day, right? Like,
yeah,
but I mean, I understand. I get it. Out of respect, if that's the boundaries they've set with each other. What were you
yeah.
gonna say?
No, I agree with you though. Like I feel like there is, like I think there has to be a moment where like you've heard about that person, even if you don't necessarily know them like that. I feel like you are going to, one way or the other, you're going to meet them. For me personally, I don't know. I feel like I would probably want mutual friends. I don't know. I just, that's how I feel, and it's not necessarily like I wouldn't trust my partner. It's more of like I feel like that's better. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that would
Yeah.
be better. Yeah, that's good though. That was a good convo. Yeah. I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Well, we'll see what your future husband says when y'all talk
Oof.
about it.
Right,
Right.
right.
Right. Oh, one of the couples that we spoke to, they've actually been married for over 30 years,
Ooh.
and they were very specific about boundaries with other people. They
Mhm.
even went as far as to say that, you've got to be careful about this particular activity, which is dining with other people, like you alone. So a husband or wife alone going to dine with someone else. They're saying that eating together is a very intimate act, and that,
Mm.
while you're dining together, it seems innocent, but emotions can creep in before you even realize it. And so they're warning married couples to just, be aware, be mindful, and honestly, just don't even tempt yourself. Don't do it. So unless you and your spouse can be doing it together with the other individual, then just stay away, is what they're saying, from that entire activity of sharing a meal with someone else without your spouse.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that I like that. Like I really think that when like sitting around in a table and just like, because then like when family, it just brings people closer together. So I think that's really 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 insightful. That's really insightful.
I think, yeah, that's exactly where they were going with it. And last but not least, we have someone who is saying that we need to respect. Okay? We need to respect a woman's intuition. So this
Ooh.
message was from this particular married woman to the men out there, okay? To the married men out there. She's saying to you guys that you need to know that God gave something special to women, and it's called intuition,
Mm.
and she wants you guys to respect it, to hear it, and to follow it. So that's
Ooh.
that's one married woman's specific advice to all you married men out there. She said, "Hey, the intuition is there for a reason." I imagine, friend, that she's probably referring to, like, how we've all heard a situation where a girlfriend or a wife is like, "Hey, I really don't think she's innocently flirting with you," or "I don't
Hey.
think," like, they say they're feeling like, "I just feel away, I don't like that interaction," or, "No, I bet this is happening," and the guy's like, "Nah, nah, 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 please."
We know.
But there's just
We
something
know.
about that intuition, right?
We know. Like we know. I don't know, like we know he is, especially that we pick up on it very, because I feel like sometimes that's what I'm telling you too. Like sometimes I feel like guys are just like, oh no, she cool, like that's my partner, like they're not really looking at it, but we know like that's flirting words though, sis. What you doing? What you doing? But they're not paying attention to that, and you could tell them like, hey, like I think you need to be careful with that, and they are just oblivious to the whole thing. Like, oh nah, I don't see that, man. Chill out, And I know, like,
Right.
I feel like guys listening to this are like, man, talking about intuition,
Yeah,
but
I'm
I
sure they're
really,
I'm so sure they are. I'm sure there's a guy there going, nah, but sometimes y'all just be jealous
yeah,
or
y'all be
something.
doing
But
too much, but nah. And even if that's so, I think that when it comes to like the comfort of your partner, I think that that should be considered. And of
right.
course,
Of
the other
course.
person who feels that way, just make sure it's not too overbearing, because sometimes that could come off as trust issues too. So we just have to create a balance where both
Hmm.
parties are feeling as if they're being respected in a sense.
Right. And sometimes it's not even about, it could be about just general happenings too. It doesn't have to be
True.
specific to, a
True,
flirtatious
true, true.
situation or something. It could just be in life,
Yeah.
trusting your partner and listening to them when they're saying, let's proceed with caution here.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well,
I
that was
agree.
category 1 for boundaries.
All right, then we're jumping into category 2, right? And category 2,
Hmm.
we all know this category. This category is very, very important. You've heard it here
Hmm.
many times before, and you will hear it again. Not only here, but you will hear it around the world. You know what I mean? It is the
Yeah.
category of communication, right? And the threat is that what they're saying is that bad communication is definitely a threat. And I agree with that
Yes.
100%, right?
Hmm.
One of the
Yep.
couple says that it is best to over communicate than to under communicate. And I
Hmm.
100% agree with that. You feel me?
Hmm.
Camille's future husband, when she asks you 10,000 questions about one thing, just, you know, it's better to over communicate than to under communicate.
Are you
Just
coming for
remember.
me
Now I'm not coming for you.
now?
No, but for
I mean,
real.
future husband, I will be asking 10,000 questions. Sorry.
She
It's
will.
true. Anyway.
But I think this is key too, because I feel like sometimes we just hear something and we're like, oh, okay, cool. Whether it be like we were preoccupied or whatever, and we find ourselves not asking enough questions, not elaborating more, and one person just leaves the conversation with what they think you meant, and
Right.
it's better to just have a dialogue and just have like a long dialogue about whatever it is, and just get it out of the way instead of revisiting this one thing over and over, you know.
Right. And make sure that both sides understand. That's actually one of the other tips on the list for communication from the couples. They said conversation, and communication is more than just what you say and when you say it. It's how you say it
Yeah.
and how it's received and what the other person understood and how they felt when you said it. Like it's more than just the words that come out of your mouth, right?
True.
It's so much more. Communication isn't just that. There's body language, there's
Oh,
tons of things. So
none.
you need to understand your partner's communication style and you need to understand that it's more than what you say.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so funny, I've taught my clients this too. Like I give them I give them one sentence or like one phrase, and I it's the exact same phrase, but it is just said differently. And I ask them, what do you
Hmm.
think about what I said first, and what do you think about what I said second? And of course, some of my clients will be like, oh, the first one was cool, but the second one is fighting words. You know what I mean? So I think that we just have to just be careful, like when it comes to nonverbal communication, body language, tone. um we just have to pay attention to all that. Yeah.
We do. Yep.
Another one is to one of the other, I think this is very important, listen to understand your partner rather than to listen to answer. this is very, very important, because sometimes I feel like we sometimes are so defensive in ourselves. Like we feel like our partners are questioning like our judgment sometimes, or questioning the decisions that we make. And oftentimes it comes off as defensive. So when they say something, it's almost like, what, like it comes off as, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. Or it comes off as, oh, but, why do you think that you are not more knowledgeable about this than I am? And sometimes it can seem like that. So I feel like if we listen and be like, if you feel like you didn't hear what the person said, be like, okay, wait, can you repeat that? Like, what do you mean? Like ask them to I guess, clarify if you feel like you're not understanding, because we can be impulsive when it comes to like answering certain questions. So I think that's very,
Yeah.
very good. Not only marriages, in real life too, because some of y'all be acting out. For real.
Yes. So, some other communication tips were talking about your day together, knowing what your partner is going through. A couple even mentioned that unfortunately, sometimes your spouse is the last one to know about something that's bothering you because you haven't spoken to them about it. And I think that's really, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
really
bad.
sad. So make sure
Yeah.
you're just knowing the intimate parts about each other's day and the good and bad of each day.
Yeah.
And then also knowing your partner. That's a part of communication. Just knowing, learning them so that you know when they're communicating or when they're not communicating, you know when something is off because
Yeah.
you've already learned them and their moods and their patterns.
Yeah. One other couple talked about, we've heard this before, not going to bed angry. Because, this person actually says that, going to bed angry can create like a detachment, or if we leave things unaddressed, like it can create detachment in your marriage. So to tackle issues and problems, conflicts head on is the best way they think works for them, and it's a good pointer for them. Another
Right.
person actually said that, to never let another, like someone of the opposite sex, be closer to your partner than you are. And I think that goes back to what you were saying, like other people knows what you're dealing with before your partner
Hmm.
does. And I think
Yeah.
that falls under the same category.
Yeah, it's kind of really closely tied to boundaries,
Yeah,
So
yeah,
I
yeah,
feel like that's, it's like in between boundaries and communication. Yeah, so they said that anytime that you realize, that you're
yeah,
talking to someone else more than your spouse, then it's time to stop, take a
yeah,
step back, check yourself. That's what they said, check yourself.
yeah.
So if you one good way to that they suggested, this couple suggested to check yourself is if you have something
Take this.
important, good or bad to that going on in your life that you want to share and your spouse isn't the first person you want to share it with, then
Yeah.
you need to step back, analyze your relationship with that other person that you wanted to tell instead, and check yourself.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
And figure out why you want to
communication.
tell them first. Like why would you want to tell somebody outside of your spouse this information first? Like what is the nature of this information? Why do you feel like you need to tell them first? Is it that you don't have that space that you can share it with your husband? That's a lot of questions that you might need to ask, or is this
Right.
person, you feel like my wife doesn't create this atmosphere? Is she defensive? Is like talk about it, figure it out, and then you and your partner work on it, because like we said, there are a lot of like micro doors that can just like open and become macro doors.
I like that. Micro doors and macro
Macro doors.
doors.
All right.
Okay, so boundaries. Boundaries and communication, those
Right.
were the biggest ones that
Yes.
every couple touched on.
Yeah.
So there's still six more categories, but they'll be faster because they're shorter, but those were the two big areas.
Right.
Making sure you're setting boundaries and making sure you're communicating well. So that should tell us something if every couple was mentioning those
Yes.
areas.
Yes. The other category is mental health. We've talked about this before. We cannot stress how we feel about mental health. The the threat that one couple mentioned is that that we're not protecting each other's mental health. So it's not just you're not protecting your wife or your husband's mental health, is that you're not protecting each other's mental health, right? Like when it comes to tragedy or tragic and traumatic events, maybe accidents or death in the family, we should be each other's support system. We should make sure that, we're here for our partners. Don't have your partner having the support elsewhere. It should come from you. It should come from, just, sitting down and talking about it. I cannot stress this enough. Like, your support system, it begins at home.
And sometimes there's outside factors that affects our mental health.
Right.
So there could be tragic events happening. If there's been a crime or an assault or death of a loved one, or especially the death of a child, a child
Yeah.
of the marriage, all of these tragic events can happen, but we have to make sure that we are healing and helping each other
Yeah.
through those things. So those things some couples never come back from, but we have to try to protect each other's mental health. That's what they were saying, that sometimes tragic and traumatic events can endanger the relationship.
Yeah. Um, this, I definitely know that this is coming from a male. It says that wives should be a safe place for husbands to vent. I know this is definitely coming. Well, this could come from a wife too, you know. That you
Yeah.
should create, and wives, create a safe space for your husband to vent. And that's what they're saying. And just, it's clear, plain. Create an environment where your partner can share anything, no matter how difficult this is, no matter how you maybe offensive it might be to you. Just listen and see what they're saying. Try to understand it from their perspective. And I would say to the person who is delivering the message, just make sure that you're tactful and graceful with what you're saying too. So that's our 2 cents.
Yeah. So the next category is, well, the next threat is letting life and marriage get boring. So that's the threat, right? So the goal is to, as one couple says, keep it unpredictable, never stop doing the little nice things that keep the marriage exciting. And you know what, friend?
Agree.
I'm not a relationship expert or
You know you
nothing,
that, but you gonna
but
sound like one right now.
no, no, no. I'm not gonna sound like one. I'm just saying something that something that I think I've realized by watching other people and also from experience in my relationships. It really, like, grand gestures are always enjoyable, right? Always, like, when they happen, something
Yeah.
big for a birthday or a big gesture just because, it's always nice.
Yeah.
But there's something about, like, the daily little things, right?
Yeah.
That I don't know. For me, it's like the little things, because when the little things are missing, it also feels empty too. Just like
Yeah.
tiny little things that seem so insignificant, they mean a lot. And this couple even went as far to give us, I mean, a ton of examples.
Examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to run through a few of them. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they said, the note in the lunchbox, bringing home the favorite candy bar, date nights, a just because trip, show up and take your spouse out to lunch, weekend getaway, cuddling and watching a movie, cover up outside in the cold and drink hot chocolate. Like, simple things that
Yeah.
don't cost anything really, right? But just doing something,
Yeah. Yeah. I
keeping
agree.
it unpredictable.
I agree. I agree. They also mentioned that it is very dangerous not to pay attention to each other after having children. That is, I think that is also something that we should pay attention to. And I've seen this happen before where, we're so, no, we are, because we ain't no parents, girl, but where I've seen where parents just get so consumed with their children that they just neglect the fact that they too are married, or it starts with them. So I mean, it's a beautiful thing too, like bringing a child into the world is something beautiful, and I could understand how we could get lost in it, because it's something that is, it should bring us closer together, but oftentimes that closeness is more centered around the child and not necessarily finding a space where you two can just be husband and wife. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as a single person with, as a single individual with no children, I can completely 100% understand how two people in a marriage might unintentionally
Yeah.
begin to neglect each other, because like sometimes my life in a week I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm ripping and running, I'm staying up late, I'm handling things, I don't even have a child to
Facts.
manage a schedule for, or or take
Facts.
care of, and I'm still just like,
Oh my
oh
gosh.
my goodness.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine when a couple has a household to run and children and their jobs and, everything, family,
Yeah.
other family, friends, just everything. And then a marriage to tend to, to make sure they're checking in with each other and keeping it exciting and healthy. So I get how it can just be difficult to balance
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
But you can't let it happen, right?
Right. Right. Pay attention to it, guys. The next one. The next one. Hey, this one is famous on the list. And this is one is famous throughout. We've heard this one before. This is the in-laws, the family in-laws, right? This one, it's a threat because sometimes the family can put pressure on the marriage. So one couple says that the expectancy of the family that you're marrying into, like the pressure to provide or live up to certain expectations, can be threatening to your marriage. And I could understand that.
Yeah.
Balance. Someone says balance. I like this. I like the leave and cleave situations because they be making a lot of like funny memes about leave and cleave. So it's balancing
Yeah.
how to leave and cleave, and still be a part of your family, like the family that you originated from, but just not overly connected or clingy to them. So it's still you creating your own family and enjoying your time with your own family, but still having your extended family as a part of your life, but just making sure that you understand that your family comes first. You know what I mean?
Right. Yep.
So I get that one. The last one in this category is just having, this can be a threat. So having unrealistic expectations, trying to make your marriage like your parents' is, or a perfect biblical marriage. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I think
Right.
this one is very. I don't know how I feel about the biblical marriage part, because I think we should strive for that, but I could understand where one can become obsessed with perfection, that we
Yeah.
tend to not necessarily just live in the moment. So I could understand that. But comparison sometimes can be very dangerous to any relationship or any individual. It's good to look up to others, but I think that when we are comparing ourselves in a way where it can become it can make your partner feel pressured, I think we have to make sure that we take a step back and look at this.
Right. Part of that sounds like boundaries to me too,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah,
having,
yeah.
like, yes, family is important and you have to blend your families together, but also having healthy boundaries because you have your new family unit to protect as well. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I agree.
So the next category is the past. And so the threat is not having dealt with the past or having huge obstacles from the past that the couple has to overcome, right? So some things that couples mentioned were not being ready for marriage or being forced into a marriage. And so, yeah, that definitely would be a threat that you bring into the marriage, not being ready. And then also your partner's past. I mean, or yours, of course, but if you are having difficulty with your partner's past, especially if it's a bad one, like people mentioned, having a criminal past or multiple relationships in the past and they carried baggage into it. So, the past and not having dealt with things from the past
Yeah.
was identified as a threat to
Yeah.
marriage.
We've talked about this in our single episode. We should be talking about this in the dating stage. When you find out that you're getting serious, make sure you're asking the difficult questions. No matter how difficult it is, make sure you're asking those questions because sometimes we're like, "Oh, I didn't know that." And all of a sudden it's off-putting to
True.
you. Make sure you are asking
True.
the questions. If you are choosing to settle down with this person, make sure you're like, okay, so we are choosing to be more serious. We see marriage in this. Let's talk about some of the things that potentially be, a threat to our marriage or potentially be something that, could be a deal breaker for either of us, so talk about it.
Yes.
The next one is, we've heard this one a lot, not compromising or being selfish. And the person says that when you are selfish and unwilling to compromise, that is a threat to your marriage. Selfishness, they give us examples. Selfishness is the opposite of love. So you cannot be selfish when it comes to, especially when you're married, the whole concept of, I know some people don't like this, but yours is mine and mine is yours. Yeah, it is what it is. Hey,
Yeah.
we cannot overlook that part of it. Another example they gave was to be careful not to constantly think of yourself only, and don't forget what is the best interest for you and your partner. So make sure that you're not only thinking about yourself, but make sure you are thinking about, your partner and your children as well. And I want to give you an example. So I remember this couple, and he said that they just got married, and they were laying down. His wife got up to make something to eat. She made something to eat, but she just made it for herself. And he was like, "Hey, you didn't make anything for me?" And she was like, "Oh no, I don't know. I didn't know you needed. You didn't say anything." So I feel like that's a like a good example of like, okay, evidently both of you guys are in the house. Don't assume that, oh, don't assume like, oh, he don't want anything, he didn't say nothing. Like, girl, ask your husband if he hungry.
Oh my goodness, that's
but
horrible.
but I
Hmm.
I think that's a good example.
Yeah, that is. That is. So they said that we have to be willing to compromise.
Mm-hmm.
In a marriage, you have to be willing to compromise. I think we hear that. That's
Yeah.
something we often hear about marriage. But this person had a special twist. So it was a wife, and she had a special twist to add to being willing to compromise. And it's actually, addressed to the wives out there. So she said, especially wives. She said husbands are often taught and trained already that, they will give up comforts in order to please their wives. But she wanted to warn wives to take into consideration how their husbands feel and to also honor him by also compromising at times and honoring him and respecting him for the fact that he does give way to you often without complaining. So she just had a little warning out there for the wives that hey, compromise is not like, oh, the man has to compromise to make me happy. It's a two-way street.
Yeah, I think that's wise. That's
Right.
I've never heard the part about like husbands are oftentimes like trained to give up or taught to give up comfort. I've never heard someone actually say that, but I could understand that perspective though, that sometimes, just to make sure, because they have this saying, a happy wife is a happy life, and I know, although I don't disagree with it, just make sure that your husband is happy as well.
That's funny that you said that because that's exactly where my mind went.
Yeah.
I was about to say, hey, it's I think what she's saying is it's not always happy wife, happy life. It's happy spouse, happy house. Because that
Okay.
way it's more gender neutral. It goes both ways.
I saw what you did there. I saw what you did
Right. I've
there.
heard that one before. I can't take
Oh,
credit for that. I heard that
I've
before.
never heard that one before.
Yeah, I like it. It's like, no, it's not happy wife, happy life. It's happy spouse, happy house.
I like that. I like that.
I like it too.
That's my
I like it.
motto. That's going to be my motto. Happy
Oh,
spouse,
good.
happy house. You know, and although I
Exactly.
would love for my husband to say happy wife, happy life, I also know that it has to be reciprocated. It's just
Exactly.
how it
Exactly.
works.
Giving and receiving.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. The next section, which is the last section, is
Yes. Of course, we saved this for last.
of course because this is
Of course.
important. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So the last section is the spiritual section, and the threat in this section is not going to church together, not having devotion, and not praying together. This person mentioned that, and I agree with this person. It says not attending church, not sitting together, not holding hands while sitting together, not holding hands while praying together, praying for each other, learning together, reading the Bible together is something that, if not, we should be doing when we're married. It just hey, oh, let me tell you this. I remember telling this person about like fasting and the level of like closeness and intimacy that you feel with God. Like, can you imagine like doing this with your partner, especially like if you're fasting about like something that, and both of you guys are truly like wanting to work on this thing? Can you imagine
Mm-hmm.
this, the level of like sense of intimacy and closeness both of you guys will feel, not only to each other but to God? Like, I can just like imagine that. Like, that is something that I am waiting to experience. Like, I can't wait to experience because I understand, I've fasted. I've fasted and I know the feeling you get. It's almost like you're in a different dimension. Like, you are just like, nah, like you feel invincible, you know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like doing that with your spouse, it just creates a different level of intimacy. So I agree.
Yeah, of course, that's very important to have, and that also, of course, is going to link back to the dating phase and who you have selected to date. So
Yeah,
this is for the people like us who are listening, the unmarried. That's going to become important in your selection phase, right?
yeah,
Making sure that in order to avoid these threats to marriage, that you do have a partner who enjoys doing these things with you now in the dating
yeah,
phase, that you are going to church together and that you do feel comfortable praying with him or her, and that you've talked about religion and that you know where you both stand and you
yeah,
know his or her walk with Christ. So, yeah, it's going to be very important in a marriage. I couldn't imagine not being able to share that portion of my life with my
right.
partner. So I am too, just like you, friend. I'm
Waiting.
looking forward
Yeah,
to having that partner that I can do those things with,
yeah,
and have devotion, wake up in the morning and, pray together, pray about stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't want that to be a one sided thing.
yeah.
So
I remember
I
talking.
respect that tip.
I remember talking to one of my friends, and basically she was like, "Oh yeah, I don't want someone. I don't necessarily. She's a Christian. She's like, oh yeah, I don't want somebody who's necessarily a Christian. I just, I just want somebody who's going to love me for me." I was like, okay, cool, cool, cool. But in the same breath, she's complaining that that person doesn't go to church with her, and I'm like, well, you have to be careful of like your expectations too, because you cannot necessarily say you don't want a Christian, but at the same time you have a problem with him not doing some stuff that Christians would do. You know what I mean? So it's almost
Right.
like you have to make sure that when you are picking your partners, that you are paying attention of like what you expect in your relationship, what you expect in your marriage, and who your partner is, and figuring out, okay, will this be attainable with this person? Because you cannot
Right.
necessarily
Exactly.
like want somebody who is not in the church but want them to you expect them to be like, oh, fast and pray and understand what it means and what it means to you, and the level of intimacy you would get, from it. You know what I mean? So we have to just be careful
Hmm.
of just like that phase in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, we had
Yeah,
to throw that in there for the unmarried
yeah,
book. But
for
this
us.
information is useful, like we like going there with the marriage topic so we can offer our married listeners some content as well. But this is so useful for
Singles.
people who want marriage,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's useful for us to hear it as well. So we are even more prepared for that stage of life. So
yeah, yeah.
that's what was out there from the married folk, One Love Nation. That's
Yes.
their tips for protecting your marriage from threats, from outside threats.
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. It's something that I would advise you guys to listen over, especially when you find your partner. I think that some of the episodes that we've done before, especially the dating, the creating intimacy episodes and stuff like that, I think it's something that we can revisit because as we evolve as human beings and as we enter into different relationships, I think it's important that we tap into those aspects of our relationship. So guys, I hope that you found this informative. I hope that you found this to be something that you enjoyed, but more so that you feel like you can learn from and apply
You
it
learn from, right?
to whatever relationship you have.
Right. And and for the married listeners, you know which portion spoke to you or resonated
Yeah.
with you
Yeah.
as something that you want to work on. So as soon as you hear it, we need to work on this. So hopefully somewhere in there you found something to either motivate you to do better or to maintain the great marriage that you have. So
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, guys, this is all we have for today. Yay.
yes, so this was week 2 of
Yes.
Love Month.
Yeah.
And I'm going to close out with some prayer, guys. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for loving us. Thank you for giving the ultimate price on the cross for us. And thank you for giving us the gift of love so that we can give it to others. Thank you for the gift of relationship and of marriage. And we're praying that our married listeners out there are including you in their marriage, that you are the third party in their marriage, and that they're striving to be that, to be like the example of God in the church. And we're praying for our unmarried listeners too, that we will all be mindful and hear your voice as we select our life partners, and that we will strive to protect our future marriages from these threats. Please guide us as we make these important life and love decisions. We love you. Thank you for first loving us. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Yes. Guys, this is episode what? Episode 44?
63.
60. What may I talk about? Did I just say
know.
Did I just
I
say
really don't
40?
know.
Did I just say 40? I'm
I think
bugging.
you did. I don't know what's wrong.
I'm
Yeah,
bugging.
it's
Somebody give me a slap. Mad thing. 63, guys. 63. Don't play with us. We not
Episode
playing.
63. Thank you for tuning in. Gracias por escuchar. Tú sabes que te amo. See you same place, same time next week.
Bye, guys. Peace. Hey, One Love Nation. Thanks for listening to the One Love, One Faith podcast. We love our listeners and we hope you will join us again next week. Please share the One Love, One Faith podcast and always remember that each day is an opportunity to show His love and grow your faith.